Welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation with me, your host Owen James, the channel that brings you all your latest Rangers news, guys. Recording on the phone again. You can post the dog in the background on the bed, chilling out. Got the Union Jack flag in the corner, obviously proud Brit myself. But look, we're going to talk ahead of what is a very busy Monday for Rangers. An awful lot going on this Monday morning. Obviously, Rangers return to pre-season training. It's 23rd of June. All the players have to report back to Auchenhowie. We'll talk a little bit about that. We've also got the AGM as well today, obviously which will be led by Andrew Kavanagh for the first time as chairman of Rangers. Looking ahead, obviously, to hopefully sorting out that money so that players could start to arrive. We've also got talk of possibly 3 players arriving this week, and sort of giving more credence to what Russell Martin said. He didn't he, very much about the fact that he expected a few in before the Panathinaikos game. The only obviously new signing that we have officially at this moment in time, club officially, that is not Fabrizio Romano official, although Fabrizio did confirm yesterday that Rangers have signed Max Aarons. So if it's Fabrizio confirmed, you're looking at about 99.9% confirmed. If Fabrizio is confirming it, the man knows everything. I don't know who he pays off or what he does, or how he finds out everything, or however he hangs out, or he must fly around every flipping airport in Europe and hang out in arrivals and departures to see who is arriving and who's going from certain places. And outside, I don't know how he finds out his stuff, but he seems to know everything. Yeah, so Max Aarons obviously looks to be a Rangers player on a season-long loan. Quite how that's going to work out with, I don't know, with James Tavernier and the Town fanboys, I don't know. But we'll see. But look, we'll talk obviously about this pre-season training begins today. So all the players in the squad have to report back to pre-season training. The only one, of course, as I mentioned on the short video last night, we will not be reporting back to actual team activities on the training pitch with Russell Martin for the first time. Will be new signing Lyle Cameron. Yes, that's right. Our new signing is injured and will be out for around about a week, they hope, with a calf injury. But it's Rangers, isn't it? It could be a week, it could be a month, it could be 6 weeks, it could be the rest of the fucking season. It is Rangers after all. We have all these so-called knocks and these so-called slight strains, and then what happens? They go from missing a week to 10 days to 2 weeks to a month, and then hardly ever see them again for the rest of the season. Something happens. I think I once remember reading a joke on, I can't remember what podcast it was now, but someone said in the live chat, Rangers physios put bandages on with nail guns. It's about right, I think, given the injuries and the length of time some people are out. Oscar Cortez to name but one, Tom Lawrence to name another one. Obviously, Tom's now gone. Looks like he's going to Wrexham, by the way. Interesting move there. But look, all the players report back. Now, 2 of the players who are reporting back to pre-season training today, who I think it was expected that would not report back to pre-season training today, are Robin Proper and Cyril Dessers. Now, Robin Proper, obviously, it was expected would go to Twente Ashende, back where he came from, but it seems that is not the case. Robin Proper is back in training with Rangers today, Monday. Apparently he'll have talks with Russell Martin over his future. Apparently any move is on hold until Proper has spoken to the manager. I certainly hope that this is the end of Proper, because like I said on the video yesterday, he is not equipped to play Scottish football. But, that all leaves us short at the centre-back, and we'll talk a little bit about his potential replacement shortly. The other player, obviously, who is coming back is Cyril Dessers. Now, everyone was expecting Dessers to be gone, to have left the club, to join Ajax Athens. That seemed to be how it was all going. However, that appears to have stalled at this moment in time due to a disagreement between Ajax Athens and Rangers over a transfer fee. Dessers had agreed personal terms allegedly on a £1.5 million a year deal, which is about 30 grand a week. However, it now emerges that Ajax are only willing to pay up to £4 million for the player, whereas Rangers are holding out for £5 to £6 million. There's a lot of talk, and you read a lot of back and forth on this, and there's certain podcasts, you read stuff in the live chat that is pro Dessers, you read some anti Dessers stuff. I think people have got to kind of face facts on this. Dessers' figures are okay. They're not brilliant, they're not amazing, they're not terrible, they're all right. But he could have scored a hell of a lot more goals, in my opinion. The guy misses a hell of a lot of chances. He spends a lot of time on the deck whinging about being fouled. For a big guy, he goes down quite easily. He goes down like a toddler. The other thing I think you've all got to try and get your heads around, even those of you who love Cyril Dessers, and I know you're out there, he doesn't fit the way that Russell Martin plays. And before anyone says we don't know how Russell Martin's going to play, well, we do. Because if you go back across MK Dons, across Swansea and across Southampton, he's played a very similar style of football. So if you follow that through, that sort of style of football that Martin is going to bring to Rangers, one of the things that he likes is a centre forward who is fast, who presses well, who is aggressive in the press, who works hard working over the back four, the entire back four, because of the pace that he has. Now, that is something that Cyril Dessers does not have. Dessers does not have a lot of pace. Even the most ardent Cyril Dessers lover has to admit that he has zero pace. His work rate is not amazing. You know, he works, but he can work a lot harder. I remember examples, you know, for example, of Philippe Clement yelling at him for not running and chasing down in the 90th minute, for him pretty much just giving up. He doesn't fit Martin's way of playing. He won't be able to do what Martin wants him to do. And I would argue that if Martin was keen to keep Dessers, he would be making as bigger argument to keep Cyril Dessers as he's done over Raskan, as he's done over Hamza. You know, they wouldn't be agreeing as a club to sell him if the manager wanted to keep him. The other thing you've got to kind of think around is Dessers has got 2 years left on his deal. He's on £27,000 a week. He's 31 years old. He's not going to get any younger. And guys, if anyone comes back at me with a Jamie Vardy argument, I don't want to sign Jamie Vardy. I don't think it's a good option. I think he's too old. I don't think it's the right decision to make for Rangers. I think Turgeman or Freegan are much better bets at this stage in their careers as opposed to Jamie Vardy's career. So please don't come back at me with that. Dessers is 31. If we can secure £4 or £5 million for him at his age now, it is good business. Move him on, get rid. And so people say, well, let's keep him on the squad. Well, you want a squad player on £27,000 a week? You know, can we as a club afford to have someone sat on the bench, not playing every game on 27 grand a week? I would argue at this stage, no. In 2 to 3 years' time, possibly, but not at this moment in time. The argument for keeping Cyril Dessers for me is just not there. The manager doesn't clearly want him because he wouldn't agree to sell him. Secondly, he doesn't fit Russell Martin's system. Thirdly, he misses so many key chances that you just cannot trust him to put away. Fourthly, he spends far too much time on the deck, falling over, moaning about it. Fifth, like I said, this is the optimum time to sell him. Sixth, if we're actually serious about this trading model, this is what we've got to do. I just cannot see an argument under any shape or form for keeping him. And that's not me hating him. That's me using transfer statistics, footballing statistics, all the statistics in the world to kind of put across to you that this is the perfect time to allow this player to leave. Now, he will not leave at this moment in time. We are stuck with him for now. So that obviously will put on hold any move from Mattia Freegan or Turgeman. That is the talk that those moves will not happen. A striker signing will not happen until Dessers is sold. Now you hear people say, well, he's not top of the list to sell. Why not sell Danilo? Why not sell Hamza? Well, selling Hamza would be a mistake. The guy is 10 times the player Dessers is. He's faster, he's more aggressive, he can work the back four over as Martin wants, and Martin is appearing to suggest by saying that he wants Hamza to stay for at least another season. Hamza is more skillful, scores goals under pressure, something Dessers does not do. Tottenham, Nice, Celtic for Hamza. People say, well, Hamza blew hot and cold last year. Well, of course he did. Barry Bassett played him on the left wing. You know, let's just use some common sense here. He's not going to get as many chances playing on the left wing as Dessers is going to do stuff through the middle. People say, well, let's sell Danilo first. Yeah, but you can only sell what people are willing to buy. And if nobody wants to buy Danilo at the moment, which it looks like no one does because of his injury record, we're stuck with him. Whether you like him, love him, hate him, loathe him, whatever you think about him, you can't pick and choose who you sell first because clubs don't want to buy him. So if it is that we've got to move a striker on and clubs are coming in saying, we want to buy Dessers, that's the player you sell. You know, you can't sit there and argue, I'm going to sell Danilo. I'd rather sell Danilo first. We're going to hold on to Dessers and we're going to wait for someone to win for Danilo. And it gets to the transfer window closing and, oh shit, we haven't signed anybody because you've kind of been so intransigent and stuck to that belief. That's not the way that it works in football. And I think some fans do need to get their heads around that it just doesn't work like that. You can, like I said on previous videos, you can draw up a list saying, I'd rather get rid of Dowell, Proper, Matondo, Danilo, Butland, Kelly, whoever, in that order. But that's not the way it works in football. unfortunately, that just isn't the way it works. And you can try and sell those players, certainly, and I'm sure Rangers are trying to sell some of those players. But if clubs don't want them because they're not very good, you can't sell them. Like I said, you can't sell what someone doesn't want to buy. You see that in shops with bread. You see the most popular lines go and get sold really quickly, and the most least popular lines get wasted. That's the way it is. That's how life is. Footballers are pretty much are a disposable commodity these days. So that's obviously, we're going back to pre-season. It'd be interesting to see obviously who, how they report, how the first sessions go. It'd be interesting as well to see how quickly Russell Martin can get his ideas across to the players and embed that new style, because obviously one of the big criticisms of Philippe Clement was that there was no style, there was no progress there. Again, with Barry, no style, no progress there. So it will be down to the fact that hopefully, Martin can come in, he can start to put his style into place. And, maybe even some of the players that we've written off as duds, as deadwood, as losers, maybe his style will suit them and they will get a second life. Sometimes you see that when new managers come into clubs that... I haven't got a clue what my dog's doing, by the way. When new managers come into clubs, some players kind of develop and grow a second life and become a better player. And you've got to kind of hope with some of our players that happens. You've got to hope as well that he looks at some of those young players, the Bailey Rices of this world, the Finley Curtises of this world, and they can get a chance. You can get something out of those guys. These are all kind of things we're going to be looking at over the next few days, weeks, months at the club, especially now we are back in training. Now, obviously, as well, the AGM takes place tomorrow. Obviously, be interested to see questions asked, responses given, and what comes out as a result of that. I think there'll be a lot of eyes on the monetary side of things, on signings, on when they could take place. On what Andrew Kavanagh actually has to say. I think it'd be fascinating for a lot of people to actually hear Andrew Kavanagh speak to the shareholders and speak about what is going on with the club at present and where him and Parag see the club and how they see the club progressing over the next 12 to 18 months. I think, that is going to be absolutely fascinating to hear from two guys who are obviously very switched on businessmen. Right, so it's been talked about on other Rangers podcasts and on other Rangers platforms that Rangers expect to welcome 3 players this week to the club. Obviously, Max Aarons is one of them. We know that. We know that he will be arriving at some point on loan, the right back from Bournemouth. Excited to see him in the Rangers team. Fast, aggressive, direct, attacking fullback. Also very good defensively, something we haven't had for a little while, a right back who can defend. The other 2 that appear to be strongly rumoured to be arriving this week, apparently verbal agreements are in place. It's just now firming up those agreements, are Connor Cody, the centre-back from Leicester City, and Kvarma Poku, the winger from Peterborough. So, look, starting with Poku, we'll get to the more controversial one of Connor Cody in a minute, which I don't personally see as controversial, but some Rangers fans do. Kvarma Poku is, kind of going to, along with Max Aarons, I think it's a complete makeover of that right-hand side of the team, which does need to be done. James Tavernier coming to the end of his usefulness. Guys, you cannot move him to centre-back. He is not Ronald Koeman, as I saw written yesterday. He is not Franz Beckenbauer, as I saw written yesterday. We're going to see a complete overhaul of the right-hand side of the team, which I think, is long overdue, because you look at that right-wing position at the moment on the depth chart, and you kind of see how poor we are there. Ross McCausland or Kieran Dowell or Ravi Matondo are kind of the choices you've got there at this moment in time. And Ravi's more a left-sided player anyway. Oscar Cortez, I suppose, could switch to there, but again, more left-sided. Bayrami, but again, more a 10. Wasted on the wing. I wonder why he was shit. Who's wasted on the wing? What a surprise. But there we go. So, I think Kvarma Poku obviously is a player that's going to come in. He's going to take that right-hand berth, hopefully, and make it his own. Now, he is a very exciting young talent, someone who people are projecting to be worth, looking at what, an 8-digit salary transfer fee in the future. Again, a very skillful player, a player who is a direct, who's attacking, who can, play a killer ball in, can put a ball in the box, can go round his man. Someone who can get over that low block. Something that he's had to do a few times. Peterborough, one of the higher teams in League One, playing against some of the poorer teams, do come against that lower block. So, again, that's something that is useful in Scotland. Although I don't feel we're seeing against Rangers now as much of the use of the low block by opposition teams, because of the fact I think they feel they can get at Rangers a lot more. And as Barry Ferguson said last year, teams enjoy coming to Ibrox. Teams enjoy playing Rangers now, and that's why you're seeing less of that low block. But Poku, I think, will be a very, very good signing. You know, he's like I said, he looks a very exciting young player, and I think he's a very low risk guy, you know, as well. Someone who obviously can come in and play on that right side. I think, you know, with Poku and Aarons, it gives you speed, it gives you skill, it gives you an attacking threat there. It gives us some real impact on that right-hand side of the Rangers side. The other signing, obviously, is Conor Coady, rumoured to be arriving from Leicester for a small transfer fee. Coady is a very experienced 32-year-old centre-back. Now, people say, well, look, if we're dismissing Dessers for being old, why are we bringing in Conor Coady at 32? Well, defenders are slightly different to strikers, and centre-backs do go on for a little bit longer than centre-forwards. You've only got to look, you know, at some of the other centre-backs around the world. Obviously, you know, look, yes, I mean, obviously people cite Virgil van Dijk, who's over 30, probably best centre-back in world football at the moment. But, you know, Davy Weir, for example, giving it as a Rangers example, you know, played into his 40s, fantastic footballer. So, you know, there's precedence there. There is precedence there. Terry Butcher played until late in his career as well. But look, Coady brings leadership, he brings experience, he brings the ball playing element, you know, to that back line. He brings that leadership element. He's captained teams in the Premier League. You know, it's something that is missing from the back line. You know, we haven't had for a long time a leader, a communicator, someone who brings the defence together, somebody who organises the defence. You know, that is certainly what Conor Coady brings. He also brings that ball playing element that Russell Martin wants from his centre backs that we perhaps haven't got other than Clinton and Ciala at this moment in time. The ability to bring the ball out from the back, to engage the midfield, to draw opposition teams on and make space for the midfield and the attack, something that Coady can do. Coady, of course, started his life as a midfielder. Many people tipped him as the next Steven Gerrard. However, that never happened because of obviously the fact that Liverpool had such talented players in the squad. So, look, at the end of the day, Conor Coady, for me, I think will be a good signing. Look, it's only going to be a 2-year deal, perhaps. But, you know, as well as bringing these younger players like Poku, like Terjemon Ofrigan, hopefully, you know, like Lyle Cameron, you know, players of that calibre, we do need to have some experience there, guys. There has to be some experience brought in to really push on and to develop this team, you know, because you can't just have a team of kids. You don't win anything with kids. And, you know, forget the Man United example. But, you know, you do not win anything with kids because even that team had experience in it. And even all Man United's teams had young players like Beckham and Scholes and Neville still had the Keanes, the Pallisters, the Bruces, the Schmeichels, the Van der Sars, for example, that brought experience to the team. And look, the defence is an area we need to overhaul. So, you know, if we can bring in Max Aarons, obviously, which it looks like we're going to do, Conor Coady and perhaps another centre-back as well. Chiefte, I think, will be the left-back this season. I think the two attacking quick left full-backs suit what Martin is looking for. He likes his full-backs to attack, but he also likes them to invert as well, something I think he will get from Aarons and Chiefte. So, look, that's where we're up to. You know, this is where we're at as a football club. And yes, I think, you know, 3 signings. Loads of us would love to see more than that. Of course you would, you know, but the transfer, it's not even July yet, guys. You know, the transfer window, you know, has still got a long, long way to go before it closes. And I think there will be more signings. Of course there will. You know, realistically, we were never going to see 5 or 6 players come in so quickly. I think a lot of the interest will be on who departs. There's talk, obviously, of Matondo being close to an exit as well. Hopefully that one's true. Again, a player who's flattered to deceive for Rangers since he joined. But look, you know, we're looking at obviously Terjemon and Ofrigan as well. Like I said, that's held up by the whole Dessers situation. Rangers are in a fascinating position, guys, and it's going to be a fascinating few months as we see the team sort of try to gel together. We see a style bed in. We see the Champions League qualifiers. We see the pre-season games against Club Brugge and Middlesbrough. You know, it's a very interesting time. And look, yes, there is a shit ton to do. There is a lot of players that need to be cleared out. There's a lot of dead wood. Unfortunately, we're not going to clear all of them in one window. And I really, really want to get away from this whole ridiculousness of, and we hear it and we see it all the time on podcasts and on live chats and on X. Yes, but there's more important players to get rid of first. It doesn't fucking work like that, guys. Please get your heads around that. You know, you may have a little list in your head of the players you want to get rid of, but unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. You know, realistically, in my head, I've got an order. I would love to see Rangers get rid of certain players. Of course I would. I don't think I'll be able to do the job anymore for us, but it doesn't work like that. And we need to realise that. Thank you for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation, guys. If you've enjoyed the content, please like, comment, share and subscribe. We're working on the new laptop, guys. Probably looking at a MacBook. Not quite sure which one yet because they're expensive. Thank you for watching. We are the people.